At approximately 10 p.m. on July 3, 2012, in a small guest house named Chenglong, located in Xiangfu City, Guangdong Province, China, the innkeeper was performing the final cleaning of the day. While cleaning the staircase on the third floor, she noticed a few small drops of blood on the steps. The drops, slightly larger than a pea and bright red, appeared fresh. She recalled seeing a male guest recently descending the stairs with a suitcase. Could the blood be related to him? Without dwelling on the thought, the innkeeper continued to the third floor to clean the vacant rooms. Upon entering room 306, she observed that the bed was neatly made and the floor had been thoroughly cleaned. However, one unusual detail stood out: a partially opened black travel bag in the corner of the bathroom. Driven by curiosity, the innkeeper approached and opened the bag, only to be confronted with a horrifying sight that she would never forget. In shock, she fled the room and called the police immediately. Approximately 30 minutes later, a team of detectives from the Xiangfu City Police arrived at the scene. Their initial investigation revealed that the travel bag contained the severed head of a woman. Based on the facial features, forensic examiners concluded that the victim was likely a woman aged between 30 and 35, with long hair and a slender build. However, the exact height and weight could not yet be determined. Evidence of a fractured hyoid bone and the discovery of a red cord near the victim's head suggested that she had been strangled to death before being dismembered. A more detailed examination revealed traces of blood in the bathroom corners and grout lines, confirming that all the blood belonged to the victim. While room 306 was clearly the primary crime scene, the perpetrator had meticulously cleaned the area, leaving minimal traces. The only identifiable evidence was a partial fingerprint found on the mattress, but the ridges were not well defined enough for identification. Investigators also discovered a small pink bag in the room containing women's cosmetics, a pair of scissors, a package of candied dates, a bottle of nutritional drink, and a phone charger. Despite the variety of items, none provided a significant lead. Based on the forensic evidence, police formed an initial profile of the suspect: an adult male with strong investigative resistance, steady nerves, and likely a prior criminal record. The level of skill in dismemberment suggested he might be a skilled butcher or a medical professional accustomed to dissection. If neither of these professions applied, it was highly probable this was not his first time committing such an act. Given the gravity of the crime, police launched a citywide investigation overnight, involving both city and district law enforcement teams. Their first priority was identifying the victim to establish investigative leads. However, the guest house was situated in a densely populated, chaotic neighborhood and operated without proper business registration. As a result, the reception desk did not require guests to provide personal identification when checking in. The only detail known was that room 306 had been rented by a middle-aged man wearing a white shirt. To find a breakthrough, investigators resorted to reviewing surveillance cameras around the area in hopes of identifying both the perpetrator and the victim. However, for reasons unknown, the surveillance cameras at the guest house malfunctioned on the day of the crime, capturing only a few short clips. Fortunately, among the remaining footage, investigators spotted the man who had rented room 306. According to the recordings, at approximately 5:13 p.m. on the day of the crime, a middle-aged man wearing a white dress shirt was seen casually walking down the third-floor hallway with a black travel bag. The innkeeper reported that the man had checked into room 306 around 3 p.m. that same day. As for when and how the victim entered the room, the innkeeper hadn't noticed, and the cameras didn't capture any suspicious activity. The crime scene examination revealed that the victim's torso and limbs were missing, while the male guest from room 306 had left with a suitcase, and bloodstains were found on the staircase. This led police to suspect that the man who rented room 306 was the murderer and had dismembered the victim. Based on the innkeeper's description, the man appeared to be about 30 years old, approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, with an average build, sparse hair, and a noticeably receding hairline. When leaving the guest house, he was seen riding a red motorcycle, suggesting that he lived nearby. Police began reviewing surveillance footage from intersections around the area, hoping to trace the suspect's residence. However, the neighborhood was complex, and the camera's low resolution made it difficult to accurately identify the suspect. Faced with these challenges, the investigation team shifted their focus to tracking the victim's movements leading up to her arrival at the guest house. Unfortunately, the guest house cameras did not capture full-body images of the victim, and without detailed physical characteristics, reviewing additional surveillance footage proved challenging. At this critical juncture, a guest in the room next to 306 reported hearing a woman scream from room 306 at around 4:30 p.m. on the day of the crime. This indicated that the victim had entered the room before that time. This key time marker provided investigators with their first significant lead. Using surveillance footage, investigators discovered that at 3:51 p.m. on the day of the crime, the man in the white shirt appeared alone at an intersection near the guest house. Tracking his movements, they observed the suspect stopping near a marketplace, seemingly waiting for someone. About 5 minutes later, a woman in a red shirt appeared on camera. Although the image quality was poor, police identified her as the victim in room 306 based on her facial features and hairstyle. Observing their behavior and interactions, investigators concluded that the two were likely acquainted. Although the guest house cameras did not capture footage of the woman in the red shirt and the suspect entering room 306 together, a timeline analysis suggests they entered the room around 4 p.m. This means that within less than 30 minutes, the woman was murdered, indicating that the suspect's actions were likely premeditated. At 5:13 p.m., the suspect was seen leaving room 306 for the first time. By 8:49 p.m., he returned to the guest house on a motorcycle, this time carrying a black suitcase. Despite having clear surveillance footage of both the suspect and the victim, the police were still unable to identify them. After analyzing the evidence, the investigation team decided to split into two groups. One continued reviewing surveillance footage in the area to track the suspect's residence, while the other distributed alerts to nearby districts and began investigating missing persons cases. The next day, a surprising lead emerged when the Ziyang City Police reported a similar case. Over 6 months earlier, in Rongcheng District, Ziyang, a woman's headless body had been discovered in the river beneath Yongdong Bridge on December 4, 2011. Forensic analysis identified the victim as a young woman aged 20 to 25, approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall. Despite extensive investigation, the victim's identity remained unknown, and no trace of the perpetrator was found. However, the methods used in the Ziyang case closely resembled those in the Chenglong guesthouse murder, leading police to suspect the same individual might be responsible for both crimes. Unfortunately, the Ziyang case provided few actionable leads, forcing investigators to press on independently. After reviewing extensive surveillance footage, they discovered that the woman in the red shirt had arrived near the guest house on a motorcycle. However, the bike was too far from the cameras to determine its license plate or make and model, making identification through the vehicle nearly impossible. Investigators decided to backtrack along the route she likely traveled, tracing her path from the guest house along Changjiang Road toward the market and nearby town. At the intersection of Jinhu and Puti roads, the woman on the motorcycle disappeared from camera view. This suggested that her residence or a stopping point might be near this intersection. Despite 3 days of investigation, police found no suspicious leads about the woman in the red shirt. A search of the missing persons database in Xiangfu City yielded no matches for her description, leaving the case temporarily at a standstill. At this point, a seemingly insignificant piece of evidence from room 306 came to light. During the crime scene examination, technicians had discovered an open package of candied dates. Although this was an ordinary snack, the packaging bore a price stamp from the Zhongshan City Price Inspection Bureau. This stamp indicated that the package had been certified by the local price authority in Zhongshan. This suggested the candied dates likely originated in Zhongshan, and that the woman in the red shirt may have purchased them there. Based on this clue, police proposed a bold hypothesis. The victim might have traveled from Zhongshan, located about 280 miles away. If this were the case, her most probable mode of transportation would have been a long-distance bus. The police decided to focus their investigation on bus terminals in the city. A major breakthrough occurred when investigators discovered footage of the woman in the red shirt on a motorcycle near the entrance of Nanxiang bus station at 3:27 p.m. on the day of the murder. Police reviewed all bus arrivals at Nanxiang before that time and identified a bus from Zhuhai that passed through Zhongshan and arrived at Nanxiang around 3 p.m. Investigators contacted the bus driver, who remembered the woman vividly as she was the only passenger boarding from Zhongshan. Having confirmed that the victim came from Zhongshan, police contacted local authorities there and quickly matched her description to a missing person report. However, identifying the woman as the victim added complexity to the case. With assistance from Zhongshan police, investigators contacted the victim's husband, Li Guohua. According to Li, his wife, Zhang Jingfen, was 30 years old and originally from Shanxi province. She worked at a foot massage parlor in Zhongshan and occasionally took night shifts, sometimes staying out for a couple of days, which was not unusual. On the morning of July 3, 2012, Jingfen left home, telling her husband she was heading to a night shift. For the first 2 days, Li Guohua wasn't concerned about her absence. However, on the morning of July 5th, he began calling her repeatedly, but her phone was turned off. The massage parlor owner also confirmed that Jingfen hadn't returned to work. Sensing something was wrong, Li reported her missing to the police. When shown surveillance footage, Li identified the murdered woman in room 306 as his wife, Jingfen. However, it remained a mystery why Jingfen lied to her husband and secretly traveled 280 miles to Xiangfu to meet a strange man at a guest house. Li Guohua claimed that both he and his wife were migrants who had moved to Zhongshan for work years earlier. He insisted that Jingfen did not have any male friends or connections with anyone in Xiangfu, a city so far away. Neither he nor any relatives recognized the middle-aged man captured in the surveillance footage. However, a review of Jingfen's phone records revealed she had made frequent calls to a Xiangfu-based number ending in 0657 prior to her murder. Notably, at 3:56 p.m. on July 3rd, just after Jingfen arrived at Nanxiang bus station, she called this number. It was her last call before she was killed. Police suspected the owner of the 0657 number to be the perpetrator. However, attempts to retrieve the subscriber's information from telecom providers proved unsuccessful. Geolocation analysis of the phone's activity revealed an intriguing detail. While the number was registered in Xiangfu, its primary usage area was in Jieyang, a neighboring city. The investigation shifted to Jieyang after police decided to pursue leads there. With assistance from local authorities, they issued a public notice seeking information about the suspect, offering a monetary reward. By the afternoon of July 7th, a crucial tip came in. A villager reported seeing a middle-aged man matching the suspect's description in a large village on the outskirts of Jieyang. Initial inquiries revealed that the village had over 3,000 residents, including many migrants renting accommodations. When police arrived at the village in the early hours of July 8th, local cooperation helped identify the suspect. According to household registration records, the suspect was identified as Zeng Xiangfu, 42 years old in 2012, originally from Jianhe County, Guizhou Province. On September 15, 1999, Xiangfu was sentenced to 2 years in prison for theft and was released on November 25, 2000. Around 2004, he and his wife Chen Baozhen moved to Xiangfu, a special economic zone, for work. Xiangfu had previously worked in a printing factory, but had been unemployed for 2 years, earning a living as a motorcycle taxi driver. Although his portrait in official records dated back to his youth and differed from his current appearance, the system confirmed his identity. In the early morning of July 8, 2012, police arrested Xiangfu while he was asleep, successfully bringing an end to the 5-day investigation of the dismemberment case at the Chenglong guest house. However, to the investigators' surprise, their battle of wits with Xiangfu was just beginning. At the Xiangfu City Police interrogation room, Xiangfu quickly confessed to murdering Zhang Jingfen. However, his bizarre motive stunned everyone involved. Xiangfu claimed he committed the crime as an act of justice. He explained that in early 2004, he and his wife Chen Baozhen moved to Xiangfu to start a new life. However, his beautiful wife soon had an affair with a wealthy businessman and left him, never to return. Betrayed and abandoned, Xiangfu spiraled into despair, losing all motivation to work. Later, he met a young woman named Ye Xiaomai, who, being from Guizhou like him, quickly became his girlfriend. Xiangfu described their relationship as a source of happiness and said they began discussing marriage. However, Ye Xiaomai insisted he buy a house before she would agree to marry him. This demand posed a significant challenge for Xiangfu, a struggling laborer, and their relationship soon deteriorated. Ye Xiaomai eventually left him as well. Two heartbreaks, both tied to financial struggles, deeply scarred Xiangfu. To escape reality, he became addicted to online chatting. However, he found that women he met online were no less materialistic. Xiangfu claimed that when he was honest about being a low-wage laborer earning 2,000 to 3,000 yuan per month, the women would reject him outright. Yet when he pretended to be a wealthy entrepreneur, they eagerly pursued him and even initiated relationships. He told investigators that the virtual world, where he could fabricate an ideal persona, fed his ego. But in reality, he remained a scorned and overlooked laborer. This stark contrast warped his psyche over time. Xiangfu confessed that he developed a deep hatred for women he saw as materialistic and insincere. Driven by this resentment, he decided to teach them a lesson in real life. With this intent, Zeng Xiangfu and the victim, Zhang Jingfen, became close friends online through a chance encounter. Xiangfu admitted that he had initially pretended to be a private business owner in Shantou. Unaware of his true identity, Jingfen quickly showed unusual enthusiasm and even suggested meeting in person. On July 3, 2012, Xiangfu invited Jingfen to Shantou and brought her to a guest house in a residential area. After entering room 306, Xiangfu initially planned to deceive her emotionally and financially. His idea was to take advantage of her, steal her belongings, and teach her a lesson about vanity. However, when he attempted to act on this plan, Jingfen reacted violently. According to Xiangfu, he panicked and was forced to restrain her, ultimately using a red cord he carried to strangle her. He claimed that Jingfen was the type of woman who was unfaithful in relationships and excessively materialistic. Further investigation revealed that Jingfen was not the only woman who had traveled to Shantou to meet Xiangfu. In his rental room, investigators discovered a laptop containing 8 different QQ accounts with approximately 3,000 contacts, most of whom were women. Reviewing the chat logs raised serious concerns among the police. During Xiangfu's interrogation, officers noted his experienced and composed demeanor, suggesting this was not his first offense. When questioned about the headless body case in Rongcheng District, Jieyang, Xiangfu denied any involvement. Nevertheless, a search of Xiangfu's room uncovered more alarming evidence. Alongside the tools used in the crime, police found another laptop containing photos of a young woman in her daily life. These photos presumably belonged to the laptop's owner, but the woman in the pictures was not Zhang Jingfen. Additionally, they discovered 2 women's mobile phones and 2 women's wristwatches. The owners of these items were not Jingfen or the woman in the laptop photos, but 2 entirely different individuals. Investigators also found women's clothing in Xiangfu's wardrobe. Since Xiangfu lived alone, police suspected these items belonged to other women who had traveled to meet him after connecting online. However, Xiangfu cunningly denied these allegations. To uncover potential connections, investigators meticulously reviewed Xiangfu's entire QQ chat history. They identified at least 5 female accounts mentioning plans to visit Jieyang or Shantou to meet Xiangfu in person. Among these women, 3 had heated arguments with Xiangfu, and 2 had completely lost contact. Investigators suspected that these 5 women might have been harmed by Xiangfu and reached out to them. Of the 5, 3 declined to cooperate due to personal reasons, while the remaining 2 courageously admitted they had been robbed and sexually assaulted by Xiangfu. They confessed they had not reported the crimes at the time due to shame. Subsequent investigation and interviews confirmed that Xiangfu had indeed committed these 2 offenses. On March 8, 2012, Zeng Xiangfu deceived Ms. Yang under the pretense of a hotel investment partnership. luring her to a restaurant near Ma Ya Road in Rongcheng District, Jieyang City. During their meeting, Xiangfu used the excuse of borrowing her motorcycle to pick up a friend, ultimately stealing her bike, which was valued at over 4,000 yuan. After selling it, he received 800 yuan. On June 19, 2012, Xiangfu lured Ms. Qin from Guigang, Guangxi, to room 303 of a hostel on Qishan Road in Jinping District, Xiangfu City. Once there, he threatened her with a knife, tied her up with rope and tape, and sexually assaulted her. He then stole a laptop, a digital camera, a mobile phone, a wristwatch, and over 200 yuan in cash. From these two cases, police observed a consistent pattern in Xiangfu's crimes. He would first lure or coerce female acquaintances met online into a sexual relationship before robbing them of their belongings. To prevent resistance, Xiangfu would take their clothes and possessions, explaining why his residence contained so many women's items. At this point, the police had uncovered Zeng Xiangfu's involvement in fraud, sexual assault, robbery, and murder. However, investigators remained uneasy because these crimes did not fully explain Xiangfu's advanced and precise skills in dismemberment. Was it possible that the headless body found near Yongdong Bridge was unrelated to him? To seek a breakthrough, police decided to revisit Jieyang for further field investigation. Collaborating with Jieyang police, investigators discovered that during the time the headless body was found near Yongdong Bridge, Xiangfu had been living in Jieyang. Furthermore, his residence was in a highly significant location, upstream of the Rongjiang Bay River, where body parts were discovered, and less than 3 miles from the crime scene at Yongdong Bridge. Despite this, Xiangfu remained silent about the case. Unable to gain a confession during interrogation, investigators turned to external leads. By reviewing Xiangfu's phone records, they identified a Guangdong-based number from Jiangmen City that had frequently contacted him before June 12, 2012, with over 10 calls in a single day. The communication abruptly ceased on June 12, which investigators found suspicious, prompting them to focus on the number. According to local telecom records, the number belonged to Huang Lifeng, a 46-year-old resident of Beihai City, Guangxi Autonomous Region. On June 13th, one day after contact ceased, Lifeng's daughter reported her missing to Jiangmen police. She stated that her mother had left home on the morning of June 12, 2012, saying she was meeting a friend in Jieyang City who had introduced her to a job opportunity. Lifeng reportedly traveled alone by motorcycle to Rongcheng District, Jieyang City. That evening, her phone became unreachable. After filing the report, Lifeng's daughter searched extensively, contacting family, friends, and acquaintances, but after nearly a month, there was still no sign of her mother. According to her daughter, Huang Lifeng, 46, had been divorced for many years and was fond of chatting and making friends online, using the nickname Feng Bai Bai. When reviewing Lifeng's online chat history, police were shocked to discover that the friend Lifeng had gone to meet in Jieyang was none other than Zeng Xiangfu, who had presented himself online as a private business owner. At this point, despite Xiangfu's continued denial, investigators noticed a revealing behavior. He kept drinking water, a sign he was attempting to conceal inner tension. Sensing his anxiety, the lead interrogator increased the pressure, directly confronting him with evidence from Lifeng's calls and messages. After over an hour of waiting, Xiangfu finally confessed to the brutal murder of Lifeng, who had been missing for nearly a month. According to Zeng Xiangfu's testimony, Lifeng was unemployed when they met online. Pretending to be a business owner, he lured her by expressing romantic interest and promising to arrange a job for her at his company. Trusting him completely, Lifeng traveled alone to Jieyang. Upon meeting her in person, Xiangfu found Lifeng attractive. Despite her age, she had maintained her appearance well. He briefly considered revealing his true circumstances to her, wondering if she, also divorced, might be willing to live with him. However, when Lifeng realized she had been deceived, she became furious, and a heated argument ensued. To prevent her from causing a scene, Xiangfu took out the red cord he always carried and strangled her to death. He then dismembered her body and disposed of the remains. At this stage, the killer had admitted to 2 dismemberment murders. but whether he was involved in the December 2011 headless body case at Yangdong Bridge remained uncertain. To unravel this mystery, the investigation team sent 3 detectives to Xiangfu's hometown in Guizhou to search for clues. During field investigations, they learned that Xiangfu was one of 4 siblings from a family that had lived in the mountains for generations. His impoverished father worked tirelessly to support his children, hoping they could leave the mountains and build successful lives. However, the elderly man could never have imagined that his son would commit such heinous crimes. Although the investigators didn't uncover direct evidence linking Xiangfu to the headless body case, they gained insight into his upbringing. Armed with this understanding, the interrogation team devised a new strategy. Instead of directly addressing the case, they decided to engage Xiangfu in conversations about his life and family relationships during the next interrogation session, using a more indirect approach to break through his defenses. This psychological strategy proved highly effective. Xiangfu first recorded a video message for his parents, expressing his remorse. "I am sorry for disappointing you and failing to live up to your expectations and sacrifices." Once his emotions were fully released, Xiangfu's psychological barriers began to break down. Eventually, he confessed to the headless body case at Yangdong Bridge, revealing that the victim was not a woman he met online, but his former girlfriend, Ye Xiaomai. According to Xiangfu's testimony, he and Ye Xiaomai often argued about money. On December 3, 2011, after a heated argument, Ye Xiaomai announced her intention to leave him for good. This declaration infuriated Xiangfu, who had already been deeply scarred by past relationships. He believed her decision to leave was primarily due to his lack of wealth. In a fit of rage, Xiangfu strangled Ye Xiaomai to death. To dispose of her body, he dismembered it and threw her remains from Yangdong Bridge into the Rongjiang Bay River. Following his confession, police contacted Ye Xiaomai's family. DNA testing confirmed that the headless body was indeed Ye Xiaomai. Throughout the interrogation, Xiangfu repeatedly emphasized that his motive was justice. He often told investigators, "On the surface, it seems like I was just conning people for love and money, but that's not true. Deep down, I wanted to teach them a lesson, to show them that money isn't everything, and they shouldn't be blinded by materialism." On March 21, 2014, the Xiangfu Intermediate People's Court issued a first-instance verdict. Zeng Xiangfu was found guilty of robbery, rape, murder, and desecration of a corpse. He was sentenced to death, and all his personal assets were confiscated. After the verdict, Xiangfu appealed. On October 18, 2015, the Guangdong Provincial High People's Court upheld the original ruling and forwarded the case to the Supreme People's Court for approval. On March 26, 2017, the Xiangfu Intermediate People's Court identified Zeng Xiangfu and escorted him to the execution ground, where he was executed by firing squad. This case serves as a stark reminder of the extreme risks involved in meeting strangers from the internet alone, regardless of whether the other person is male or female, or whether the meeting location is nearby or far away. You can never predict whether the encounter will bring unexpected joy or a horrifying nightmare. The case highlights the dangers and potential risks of forming friendships and relationships online. Zeng Xiangfu exploited the victim's naivety and material desires to carry out his crimes. By concealing his true identity and pretending to be a wealthy businessman, he lured his victims and committed horrific acts. This underscores the need for caution when interacting with strangers online. Trust should not be given lightly, and it's crucial to avoid meeting people from the internet in isolated or private locations, especially when alone. Additionally, the case serves as a wake-up call to avoid placing excessive value on material wealth and to exercise careful judgment in social relationships.